So tonight is the continuation of my blog series about autoimmune disease. So if you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease or thyroid disease or anything like that, I'm sharing my journey and the things that I am doing to help reverse those symptoms. So thanks so much for joining me. Tonight is about finding the right doctor. So I will tell you a little bit about my background and my journey with that. Again, if you don't know me well, I am not a doctor, I'm not a naturopath, nothing like that. I am simply a patient, and this is my experience. So I was diagnosed hypothyroid in 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. And so put on thyroid medication, and it helped a little bit, but I never really fully recovered. I have never really felt that level of energy or clarity in my head, just not really myself. And it had been so long, and it's such a gradual process that it happens so slowly that you don't even really notice it until one day you wake up and you're like, who am I? I don't feel like me anymore. And it wasn't about until about a year and a half ago when I started doing my own research and like I talked about last night, doing my own research and learning more about thyroid disease, that I really looked into the autoimmune side. And I had gotten a referral from another friend, thank you so much, Becky, for a naturopath. That's something that I've never tried, and so I decided, why not? I need to figure some of this stuff out. And so I went ahead and went to the naturopath, and that went really, really well, and that's a whole other series that I should probably do. But what I want to talk about here is more the conventional medicine side. But in working with my naturopath, she really encouraged me to get an autoimmune test to really know what we were dealing with. And so I did. Came out that I had a very, very angry immune system. And so I went back to my general doctor, who basically said, there's nothing I can do for you. There's nothing I can do for you. So he sent me to an endocrinologist in town, and it was one of the most horrible experiences of my life. I was at my absolute worst, where all of my symptoms were super flared up, including being extremely emotional and no mental clarity, as well as many other things. But those two things were the biggest problems that I was having at that moment. And I went into this endocrinologist, and literally the first thing he said to me when he walked in the door was, I don't even know why you're here. There's nothing I can do for you. I don't know why you're here. There's nothing I can do for you. That's the first words out of that endocrinologist's mouth. So obviously that did not go well, given the state that I was in with my thyroid and the autoimmune disease. I, of course, erupted into tears, which did not help the situation. I'm sure you can imagine this doctor just from those words alone. And he, we continued at this appointment and talked about my symptoms and everything. He dismissed and dismissed and dismissed and just said, well, you have an autoimmune disease. You're already on meds. There's nothing else I can do for you. So I was made to feel stupid and dismissed and not valued and like a hypochondriac. And again, it was more referrals to saying, you just need a therapist. And hey, I am pro therapy. I mean, I think therapy is so important, but I knew that was not the root of my problem. And thankfully I had done enough reading and enough research to still be able to have that sense and that conviction to just say, whatever, see ya, I'm never going to come back here again. After that, thankfully I did find another endocrinologist through one of my mom's doctors, who has a very open mind and is very supportive of functional medicine and things like that. So I went to go see her, and it was a complete 180. Complete 180. That experience was what I was hoping for. Someone with an open mind who knew that, hey, these are the things that I can do for you. And I told her, I said, look, I'm working with this naturopath, and already with some of the dietary things that we've changed, these are the kind of results that I'm seeing, but I want to make sure that, you know, I'm working with a doctor who can work with a naturopath and be open and really look for results and not just be stuck in ego or whatever it was. And she has been amazing, and we tried some different meds which have helped as well. And since that year and a half with working with the naturopath and the new endocrinologist, my medicine levels have been reduced several times, twice in the last 3 months. So it's really, really exciting. And I tell you this very long story because it's both ends of the spectrum. Finding the right doctor is key. It is life-saving, and it is important, and you are worth it. So I'm going to give you 3 tips that are actually directly from the Dr. Amy Myers book, The Thyroid Connection, that I shared yesterday, on how to work or how to ask your doctor for more. She has 2 chapters in this book that are solely dedicated to how to work with your doctors. Why doctors sometimes get it wrong, the limitations of conventional medicine in treatment of an autoimmune disease, as well as then how do you actually work with your doctor, and you know, the bits like I shared with my first endocrinologist of if you're stuck with somebody who is stuck in ego and not open-minded to the benefits of diet and lifestyle, you should maybe look for somebody else. But her 3 things are, number 1, commitment. And what that really means is trusting yourself. You know your body best. You know when there is something wrong. And get clear on what your objectives are. When you have a myriad of symptoms, get clear on what are you trying to accomplish. What are your goals? And don't take no for an answer. And if it's not the right doctor, then go somewhere else. There are other doctors out there who are amazing. You're worth it. The second piece is setting your objectives, and she goes into a lot of detail in this book, so I'm not going to, because it gets into all the medical stuff that is a little bit over my head, although she does make it very understandable in the book. But again, I am not an expert, so I would encourage you to read from an expert. But the number 2 thing is setting objectives, so it's getting the right tests, getting the right treatment, and the way that you play into that is understanding the treatments available so that you can have a full discussion with your doctor about, well, I've heard of these different things. Can we talk about the pros and cons? And that was part of the really great conversation that I had with my current endocrinologist in saying, hey, there are these 3 different things. Can we talk about each one of these, what they mean, so that we can choose together? Monitoring what is happening. So keeping a journal of how you're feeling, how different things have affected you. So if you have that autoimmune disease, so keeping that journal, paying attention to how eating certain foods or lifestyle or stress affects that autoimmune symptoms, and so that you can start chronicling and finding the root of the problem, because that's really what this is about, is finding the root of the problem so you can start to fix it. And getting the right supplements and nutrients, which of course you would need naturopath and doctor and that kind of thing to make sure that you're getting the right stuff. But the third piece is developing a strategy. So learning how to deal with your doctor, understanding that, you know, again, going back to my experience, I had one experience of completely ego-driven doctor, and I just had to say see ya, because my health is more important to me than that. And versus being with doctors and naturopaths that are results driven and want to find the root of the problem instead of just looking at symptoms. And the other piece of developing that strategy is understanding what is and is not covered in your insurance. Given the current climate right now around insurance, not going to go any further than that. So just understanding what is and is not covered is important so that you know what you're getting into. And I have been very fortunate that I was able to go through this process and pay for extra tests and pay for naturopaths. So I know that I am very fortunate in that, and not everyone has that same life. So tomorrow what I'm going to share is a little bit more about the nutrition that I have learned that really helps. So hopefully that is maybe a jumping point for someone as well. So thanks so much for joining me.